Welcome back to another video. Luis from TradeOptionsWithMe.com here. Today's video is all about option spreads. So after watching this, you should be able to fully understand what an option spread is, how they work, what different kinds of option spreads exist, and even more. Option spreads can be thought of as Lego bricks. They are the basic building blocks of almost all option strategies. And that's also the reason why it's extremely important to completely understand what option spreads are and how they work. If you completely understand option spreads, you will have a much better time understanding all other option strategies. It's a much better idea to learn and fully understand these simple building blocks than to try to understand all these more advanced option strategies right away. If you understand these basic spreads, you can understand almost everything. But if you only understand and are familiar with one or two more complex strategies, you will have a much harder time learning other strategies as well. So what I'm trying to say is it's much more efficient to learn how option spreads works than it is to learn other specific, more advanced strategies first. So without further ado, let's get started. What is an option spread? An option spread is an option strategy involving the purchase and sale of options at different strike prices and or different expiration dates on one underlying asset. So all options involved in an option spread are of the same type, which means that all options are either call options or put options. All options involved are on the same underlying asset, and the only aspect that they differ in is either expiration date or strike price, or both expiration date and strike price. Furthermore, an option spread consists of the same number of long as short options. So if you sell two options, you also have to buy two options, otherwise it wouldn't be an option spread. In a few minutes you will learn about different kinds of option spreads, but it's important to always keep this in mind. Before we get into the different types of option spreads, I just want to give you a specific example of an option spread. So our example option spread is you buy 3 call options with a strike price of 50 and you sell 3 call options with a strike price of 55, and both have the same expiration date. This means the chosen options were call options, there are no put options involved, otherwise it wouldn't be an option spread, and they only differ in regards to strike price, and obviously they both are on the same underlying asset. And as you can see, we bought 3 call options and we sold 3 call options. So the same amount of long as short options are involved. Now you should be familiar with the basics of all option spreads. So now we can move on to some different types of option spreads. Basically, there are 3 main types of option spreads. There are vertical spreads, there are horizontal spreads, and there are diagonal spreads. I will now present each of these in more detail. First off, what are vertical spreads? A vertical spread is an option strategy that only consists of options that differ in regards to strike price. So all options are of the same type, they have the same expiration date, but they only differ in regards to strike price. This doesn't leave too many possibilities for different spreads, and that's why there only exist 4 different vertical spreads. But these 4 vertical spreads can be ordered into 6 different categories. The first 2 are call spreads. Those are the spreads that only consist of call options. The second type is put spreads. Those are the vertical spreads that only consist of put options. Next up we have bull spreads. Bull spreads are those that are bullish, so they profit from increasing prices. Furthermore, we have bear spreads. Those are the spreads that are a bearish strategy, that profit from decreasing underlying assets prices. And last but not least, we have credit and debit spreads. Debit spreads are those that are opened for a debit, which means that you have to pay to open them, and credit spreads are those that are opened for a credit, which means that you actually receive money to open these spreads. The 4 different vertical spreads that exist are bull call spreads, bull put spreads, bear call spreads, and bear put spreads. The setup of a vertical spread is actually very simple. All you have to do to create a vertical spread is buy an option and sell an option with a different strike price on the same underlying asset with the same expiration date. That's it. This is how the payoff diagrams of a bull spread and a bear spread look like. Like I just presented earlier, bull spreads and bear spreads can either be set up with put or call options, but this doesn't really affect the payoff diagrams in a big way. The setup of a bull spread is as follows. You buy a call option and sell a call option at a higher strike price. Bear spreads are set up very similar. Bear call spreads are set up by selling a call option and buying one at a higher strike price, and bear put spreads are set up by selling a put option and buying one at a higher strike price. As you can see on the payoff diagrams, vertical spreads are defined risk and defined profit strategies. This means that you can't lose or make more than a certain predetermined amount of money on a vertical spread position. To calculate the max risk or max profit, you only need one relatively simple formula. That formula is the width of the strikes times 100 minus the premium. So if the width between the strikes is 5, all you have to do is multiply 5 by 100, which is 500. And if the premium to open that spread was $100, $400 would be the result of this calculation. This calculation is used to determine the max risk for credit spreads and the max profit potential for debit spreads. Credit spreads are bull put spreads and bear call spreads, and debit spreads are bear put spreads and bull call spreads. The other calculation needed to find out the max risk for debit spreads and the max profit potential for credit spreads is actually just the premium. So the premium received for credit spreads is the max profit potential, and the premium paid to open a debit spread is the max risk. Hopefully this makes sense. Otherwise, please let me know in the comment section below and I'll do my best to help you out. Vertical spreads are directional strategies. This means they try to profit from price movement in the underlying asset. Implied volatility and time only have a small impact on a vertical spread. Now you should know what vertical spreads are and how they work. Next up, we have horizontal spreads. So what are horizontal spreads? Horizontal spreads are an option strategy involving options that only differ in regards to expiration date. This means the options involved in horizontal spreads have the same strike price, they are on the same underlying asset, but they have different expiration dates. Horizontal spreads are also referred to as calendar spreads. There are 4 different types of calendar or horizontal spreads. First off, we have short call calendar spreads, and they are set up in the following way. You buy one call option in the front month and sell one call option in the back month. Front month is the earlier expiration date and back month is a later expiration date. A long call calendar spread is exactly the other way around. You sell one call option in the front month and you buy one call option in the back month. These 2 calendar spreads can also be created with put options, so all you have to do is exchange the word call with put. So instead of buying a call option in the front month and selling one in the back month, you buy a put option and sell a put option. I don't think I have to go over them in detail. This is how the payoff diagram of a long calendar spread looks like. As you can see, it's a neutral strategy that doesn't try to profit from price movement in the underlying asset. However, depending on which strike price you choose, a calendar spread can be set up more and less directional. But generally, calendar spreads aren't a directional strategy. They actually try to take advantage of movement in implied volatility. For instance, long calendar spreads try to profit from increases in implied volatility, whereas short calendar spreads try to do the opposite. Summed up, calendar spreads try to profit more from implied volatility and time than movement in the underlying asset's price. Last but not least, what are diagonal spreads? Diagonal spreads are actually a combination of horizontal and vertical spreads. The options involved in diagonal spreads differ in both regards to expiration date and strike price. This obviously leaves a lot of possibilities, and that's also why you can set up diagonal spreads in many different ways. I won't go over the different ways in detail right now because that would just take way too much time. Instead, I'll just present one example so that you can see how diagonal spreads are set up. In our example, we have 5 long calls and 5 short calls. The 5 long calls all have the strike price 48 and they're all in the front month. The 5 short calls have the strike price 54 and they are all in the back month, which means that they have a later expiration date than the long calls. As you can see, these options have different strike prices and different expiration dates. Nevertheless, there are still the same number of long as short options, and it's only one type of options. There are only call options and not put options. Therefore, this is a diagonal spread. You could also create a diagonal spread with put options or completely different strike prices or other expiration dates. Diagonal spreads try to take advantage of price movement in the underlying asset and implied volatility and time. Generally, diagonal spreads are probably the most complicated and complex of these 3 option spreads. I definitely would not recommend a beginner trading these. But now let's move on and recap some of the most important points. On this table you can see why the different option spreads have their name. Horizontal spreads only differ in regards to expiration dates, vertical spreads only differ in regards to strike price, and diagonal spreads differ in regards to both. In other words, diagonal spreads are a combination of horizontal and vertical spreads. None of these spreads is necessarily better than the other. They are all suitable for different scenarios in different markets. For instance, if you want to take advantage of price moves in an underlying asset, then a vertical spread would probably be the best choice. However, if you want to take advantage of increasing implied volatility, then a diagonal spread or probably even a horizontal spread would be the best choice. But generally speaking, vertical spreads are by far the easiest and simplest of these 3 different option spreads, and they are also the most beginner friendly. Generally, option spreads or option strategies that involve different expiration dates aren't as simple as those that only have options in the same expiration cycle. But as I said in the introduction of this video, if you fully understand option spreads and especially vertical spreads, you will have a much better time understanding other option strategies as well. Why is that, you may ask? Well, the reason for that is because most other option strategies are simply a combination of different option spreads. Let me give you a specific example. Iron condors are usually labeled as a more complex 4-legged option strategy. However, iron condors aren't anything else than a combination of a simple call spread and a put spread. So if you fully understand these simple vertical spreads, you will also be able to understand how iron condors work. The same goes with most other option strategies as well. That's why I will give you another example. Butterfly spreads are another option strategy involving 4 different options. But once again, all they are a combination of a call spread and another call spread, or a put spread and another put spread. So actually butterflies aren't that complex after all. I hope you can understand what I'm trying to say with this. If you want to learn more about butterflies, I actually have a separate video on them, so make sure to check that out. I'll leave a link to that in the comment section below. In conclusion, option spreads can be thought of as Lego bricks. Just like Legos, option spreads can be combined in many different ways to create whatever your heart desires. Thanks for watching, I truly hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comment section below and I will help you out as fast as possible. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe if you enjoy content like this.